Before we begin, take a moment to support the channel. If you're interested in real crime stories, unsolved disappearances, and cases that still raise questions today, make sure to subscribe. Don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps keep these stories alive. Now, let's begin.
Anchorage, Alaska, wears its winter darkness heavily in February. On the evening of Wednesday, February 1st, 2012, 18-year-old Samantha Koenig was working the closing shift alone at the Common Grounds espresso stand, a small, drive-through hut on Tudor Road. Sam, as friends and family called her, was a spirited young woman with a bright smile, working to save money for a trip to Texas. Her shift was meant to end at 8 p.m. Around 8:15 p.m., a customer pulled up to the darkened hut. No one came to the window. The customer, knowing something was wrong, called Samantha's boyfriend, who immediately tried her cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. He then called Samantha's father, James Koenig. Panic began to set in. James drove to the coffee stand. He found the door locked, the lights off, Sam's purse and jacket still inside, and the cash register sitting open and empty on the counter. His daughter was gone. He called the Anchorage Police Department at 9:11 p.m. to report her missing. The initial assumption was a robbery gone wrong. Perhaps Samantha had been forced into a vehicle by a thief. Police processed the scene. They found no signs of a struggle inside the tiny hut. The most critical piece of evidence was secured: the espresso stand's digital video surveillance system. The footage from that night would soon reveal a crime far more calculated and terrifying. The following day, the story took a bizarre and public turn. A man walking his dog in a nearby park found Samantha's bank card and a handwritten note. The note, addressed to Sam, was a rambling, semi-literate ransom demand. It claimed Samantha had been taken by a military group and demanded a ransom. The note's crude language and outlandish story immediately struck investigators as a potential hoax or a deliberate misdirection. The discovery location seemed staged. The authenticity of the threat was in serious doubt, but the danger to Samantha was undeniably real. As the Anchorage police and the FBI joined forces, the investigation expanded. Samantha's picture was plastered across the city. Her family pleaded publicly for her safe return, holding on to a fragile hope that she was alive somewhere, being held for ransom. But the security footage from Common Grounds, once reviewed, would extinguish that hope and introduce a predator of a wholly different caliber to the case. The timestamp would show the exact moment Samantha Koenig's life intersected with one of America's most disciplined and mobile serial killers. When investigators reviewed the digital video recorder from the Common Grounds espresso stand, they witnessed the abduction unfold with cold, pixelated clarity. The timestamp was 8:13 p.m. The footage showed a man approaching the serving window. He was white, wearing a dark hooded sweatshirt pulled tight around his face, and a black ski mask or balaclava obscuring his features. He appeared to be holding something, a gun, as it would later be determined, pointed at Samantha inside the hut. The interaction was brief. Samantha, visible through the window, could be seen complying with his demands. She opened the locked door from the inside. The man entered the small space. For a moment, they were both out of frame inside the hut. Then, the man emerged, now wearing a different jacket, Samantha's own brown, fur-lined coat. He was leading Samantha, who had her hands bound behind her back with what appeared to be zip ties. He walked her calmly to the passenger side of a white, four-door pickup truck parked just out of view of the main camera. He helped her in, closed the door, walked around to the driver's side, and drove away. The entire encounter lasted less than 4 minutes. It was not a panicked robbery. It was a smooth, efficient, and rehearsed kidnapping. The video was a breakthrough and a nightmare. It confirmed a violent abduction, but revealed a perpetrator who left no identifiable features. The truck was a generic white Ford or Chevrolet pickup, common in Alaska. The license plate was not visible. The man moved with a confidence that suggested experience. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, BAU, was consulted. Their profile indicated an offender who was organized, forensically aware, and likely had prior experience with abduction or violence. The change of jackets was a specific detail note. The investigation now had a clear mission: find the white truck. Security cameras from surrounding businesses were scoured. The truck was tracked leaving the area, but it seemed to vanish into the sprawling Alaskan road network. The crude ransom note found earlier now seemed like an amateurish plant, perhaps intended to waste time or misdirect resources away from the professional execution seen on tape. Meanwhile, a parallel thread was being pulled. Investigators began looking into other recent crimes in the Pacific Northwest that involved white pickup trucks or bold, planned attacks. They were operating in the dark, not yet knowing that the man in the video, Israel Keys, was a ghost who had been crisscrossing the country for over a decade, leaving graves in his wake. He had no criminal record that would flag him, no DNA in the system, and he meticulously avoided leaving patterns. Samantha Koenig was his latest victim, but the method, a public, camera-recorded kidnapping, was a deviation from his normal, deeply hidden routine. It was this deviation that would ultimately begin his undoing. For weeks after Samantha Koenig's abduction, the investigation in Anchorage agonizingly stalled. The white truck had disappeared. The ransom note led nowhere. Public pleas yielded no solid tips. Samantha's family endured a torturous wait, hoping for a call that never came. Unbeknownst to them or the police, Samantha was already dead, murdered within hours of her abduction by Israel Keys. Her body was being kept by Keys in a purpose-built shed at his property in Alaska. The break in the case came not from Alaska, but from Texas, and it was born from Keys's own greed and uncharacteristic sloppiness. After killing Samantha, Keys had kept her body for 2 weeks. In a calculated move to extract money and further taunt the investigation, he staged a proof-of-life photo. In late February, he used Samantha's own debit card and PIN number to withdraw $500 from an ATM in Anchorage. The security camera captured the user. It was a man disguised with a hood and sunglasses, but he was holding a piece of paper. When the image was enhanced, investigators saw it was a recent, dated newspaper. This was the proof Samantha had been alive after her abduction, they believed. It was, in fact, a cruel ruse. The photo was taken post-mortem. Keys then embarked on a cross-country trip, using Samantha's debit card to make withdrawals at ATMs along a route from Alaska, down the West Coast, across the South, and eventually to Arizona and Texas. Each transaction pinged his location. The FBI, now tracking this financial trail in real time, saw a pattern emerging. Someone was driving south with Samantha's card. This was a critical error by Keys. His usual method was to use only cash from victims, never leaving a digital footprint. His desire for the ransom money from the Koenig family overrode his discipline. On March 13, 2012, in Lufkin, Texas, a Texas Ranger on routine patrol ran the license plate of a white 2003 Ford Focus rental car. The system flagged the registered owner, Israel Keys, who had an outstanding warrant for a minor probation violation in New Mexico. The Ranger initiated a traffic stop. Keys was calm and compliant. During the stop, the Ranger discovered a cell phone and Samantha Koenig's debit card in the car. Keys was placed under arrest on the warrant. Initially, he was just another out-of-state arrest. But when his name was run through national databases, It triggered an alert from the Anchorage FBI field office. The man they had been tracking via ATM withdrawals was now in custody. Back in Anchorage, FBI agents scrambled. They obtained a federal warrant to search the rental car. Inside, they found a treasure trove of evidence. Not just Samantha's card, but other items linking Keys to the kidnapping. Most ominously, they found that Israel Keys was extradited from Texas to Alaska to face federal kidnapping charges in the Samantha Koenig case. He was held at the Anchorage Correctional Complex. Initially, he was uncooperative, invoking his right to an attorney. But as the weight of the evidence mounted, the video, the ATM trail, the items in his car, and perhaps seeing an opportunity to control his narrative, he agreed to speak with FBI investigators without a plea deal in place. What followed was a series of interviews that peeled back the layers of one of the most methodical and terrifying serial killers the FBI had ever encountered. Keys was calm, articulate, and strangely proud of his efficiency. He confessed in detail to the kidnapping and murder of Samantha Koenig. He described abducting her from the coffee stand, taking her to a shed on his property, and murdering her there. He then described keeping her body for 2 weeks before disposing of it in a frozen lake north of Anchorage. He led investigators to Matanuska Lake, where, in April 2012, divers recovered Samantha Koenig's body, weighted down with chains. But Keys's confession didn't stop with Samantha. He hinted at a much larger, darker history. He told investigators he had been killing for over a decade, possibly since 1996. He claimed victims across the United States, from the Pacific Northwest to New England. His method was his signature. He would travel vast distances, sometimes flying, sometimes driving, to commit murders in remote areas or in states where he had no connection. He would bury kill kits, caches of weapons, tools, and disposable materials, years in advance near potential crime scenes. He would then return to the area later, use the kit, commit the murder, and disappear, leaving no link between himself and the... He refused to name most of his victims, treating their identities as bargaining chips. He only provided details when investigators could present him with a specific missing persons case that matched his admitted timeline and method. Through this painful, piecemeal process, the FBI was able to link Keys to at least 3 other confirmed murders: Bill and Lorraine Currier, a couple from Essex, Vermont, kidnapped from their home in 2011, and an unidentified victim whose remains were found near his property. He alluded to up to 11 total victims. Keys's motivations were a chilling blend of control, sexual gratification, and financial gain. He described planning his crimes with military precision, deriving pleasure from the domination and the act of taking a life. He targeted strangers almost exclusively, believing it made him harder to catch. The Samantha Koenig abduction was an anomaly, a more public, impulsive crime driven by a need for money. That anomaly, and his subsequent use of her debit card, proved to be his fatal mistake. In the interrogation room, Israel Keys was not a raving monster. He was a cold, analytical architect of death, explaining his work to a captive audience. With his detailed confessions, Israel Keys held a macabre form of power. He knew the identities of his other victims, and the FBI desperately needed that information to bring closure to other grieving families and to fully understand the scope of his crimes. A contentious negotiation began. Keys agreed to continue confessing and to help locate other bodies, but only under specific conditions. He demanded that his crimes not be sensationalized in the media, that certain graphic details be kept private, and that the government agree not to seek the death penalty against him. In December 2012, a plea agreement was reached. Keyes pleaded guilty to the federal charges related to the murders of Samantha Koenig and the Keyes. In exchange, the government agreed to a sentence of life imprisonment without parole and to not pursue additional federal charges for other murders he might disclose. The bargain was made to unlock his secrets. However, once the legal pressure of a potential death sentence was removed, Keyes' cooperation waned. He became increasingly manipulative and controlling during interviews with investigators. He would dangle pieces of information, then retract them. He grew angry about media coverage of his case, which violated his conditions. The flow of information slowed to a trickle. The families of his unknown victims were left in a perpetual state of agonizing limbo. Then, on the morning of December 2nd, 2012, guards at the Anchorage Correctional Complex found Israel Keyes unresponsive in his cell. He had used a razor blade to slit his wrists and had strangled himself with a bedsheet. He had also carefully listed his personal property, including the books he was reading, in a neat, final note. His suicide was a final act of control, a way to dictate the end of his own story and to permanently silence the confessions that could have solved numerous cold cases across America. His death left a devastating legacy of unanswered questions. The FBI believes Keyes was responsible for at least 11 murders between 2001 and 2012, but only 3 have been conclusively proven. His known method, traveling vast distances, burying kill kits, targeting strangers, means that victims could be scattered across multiple states, their cases filed under missing or unsolved, with no link to each other or to Keyes. The FBI maintains an active page on Keyes, seeking public help to identify his other victims by matching missing persons to his known travels. For the Koenig family, the legal resolution brought no peace. They had to endure the horror of Keyes' confession and the knowledge of what he did to Samantha. James Koenig, Samantha's father, became an advocate for victims' families and a critic of the plea deal that he felt allowed Keyes to cheat justice. The case of Israel Keyes stands as a terrifying example of a high-functioning, intelligent serial killer who operated under the radar for years by breaking all the traditional patterns. It is a story about the limits of justice, the torment of unresolved grief, and the shadowy figure who chose to take his final secrets to the grave. They were more than names on a file, more than dates, places, or unanswered questions. Each of them woke up believing there would be another tomorrow. There were plans not yet made, words not yet spoken, love not yet fully given. A cup left on a table, a phone that never rang again. Life didn't end loudly, it faded into silence. For those left behind, time broke. A mother learned how to breathe while waiting for a door that would never open. A sibling carried guilt that never belonged to them. Friends kept memories alive because forgetting felt like another loss. They were not victims. They were people. They laughed. They feared. They hoped. They mattered. Justice may never have reached a final sentence. Answers may remain incomplete. But remembrance is its own form of truth. This is for the lives interrupted, for the voices that were taken, and for the promise that they will not disappear into numbers or darkness. They were here, and they are not forgotten.
If you want to keep uncovering the mysteries that linger in the shadows, don't forget to subscribe. Your likes help these cases reach more investigators, and your comments might just be the clue that leads to the truth. Stay curious and stay vigilant.